So we are going to Bristol, Tennessee, because we manage 12 unit up there or 16. I don't really remember offhand, but we're going there because we successfully negotiated with the tenant that stopped paying rent to actually pay rent again and then exit the lease early in order for them to not be evicted. That's a win for the landlord in our eyes because it started as an eviction that would have cost money, time, lost rent, and ended up being just a tenant leaving a little early on a current lease. So we're going to go up there. It's about a 2-hour drive from Knoxville. We're going to go to Buc-ee's first because that's important. And then get gas there. I have a call in 20 minutes with a new customer from California. I think they have a single family for us to manage. But once we're up there, we're going to do the turnover inspection. So I'll walk the unit, I'll see what the property needs before taking photography and then getting it listed once again for the market rate and finding a next tenant. So it'll be about a 20-minute walkthrough inspection, and then we'll be back on the road for another 2 hours, come back home. So that is a life of a property manager on a Monday morning. Sales call over. Probably not the best fit, but that's all right. California investors with uh, limited knowledge on the area, and they hear podcasts and they hear about the gold. And I think that a lot of times, if people are the ones selling you the shovel, maybe don't listen to them as hard as you want to believe because they're selling a dream, and you got to realize what the accuracy, what rivers will have the gold that the guy selling the shovel is telling you about. A lot of that goes on in Knoxville. We have a great area to invest in, but you got to pay attention to who you listen to and take the average. If you talk to 10 different property managers, 10 different realtors, 10 different multifamily investors, 10 different single family investors, take the average of what you're hearing and then ask people for their, well, if you had one sentence to tell someone about Knoxville, what would you say? And then you take 10 of those sentences from 10 different people that hopefully have a little bit of knowledge and then create a paragraph. And now you have an essay that you can look at and say, what's the truth? And so I gave her my 2 cents. Hopefully she doesn't value it more than that or less than that. And hopefully she talks to more people to learn more about before she spends, $250,000 on just one single family with one avenue or plan that she's trying to achieve and fail or have a less likely chance of succeeding. So all that may be a lot of gibberish, but I think that there might be some value for you watching this video with what I just said. But we're headed up to Bristol. We're still got a turnover to deal with. Emails are popping off on maintenance items across our portfolio today. Of course, Memorial Day. What a great day to have. So we'll see you up 2 hours northeast of where we are right now. This is the unit. We're out in Bristol. So once again, this is somewhat of a, you can film me, an abnormal exit, like a early lease termination. So early lease terminations are not a good thing, but it's better than what this property could have had happened, which was an eviction. So if you don't communicate with tenants enough or properly, however you want to say it, you can put yourself in a worse position than you need to be. So this was a story where the tenant stops paying rent, and if we played the chess pieces incorrectly, they could have tried to squat and made this a longer process for us than we would want. So we're always trying to negotiate and make things turn into better situations. This one went from let's say the worst case situation, a long, violent, expensive eviction, and we dropped it all the way down to just an early lease termination. So we did collect the rent that was due up until the day they exited the lease. So, or left the property. So this is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, and it's left in really good condition. The first thing that we do on every move out inspection is turn every light on and pull out every drawer. So the kitchen looks ridiculous right now, but we do that so that way cleaners know what we want gone. Any personal item, I mean, even a little ketchup packet before we put a new tenant in. And you're probably wondering, at what point do we charge the tenant versus bill the landlord for the cleaning, repairs, everything you can think of? In the state of Tennessee, for how our brokerage reads the law, anything reasonable, as in ketchup packet, I have to charge, oddly enough, the landlord because it's reasonable to believe that a tenant, the average tenant, is going to leave some garbage in some drawer. But that's like, I would consider unreasonable for the average tenant to leave that much stuff. So then I can actually take that out of the security deposit. And it's kind of a gray area because unless you go to court and you argue it, no one will really know, from my opinion, what reasonable condition is. So the property must be left in a reasonable condition. Anything unreasonable can be taken out as security deposit. So unreasonable would start at that line of like massive scratches in floors, windows broken, front door broken, things that a tenant would put on a maintenance item for us to repair, and then we would find out they caused the damage. That would be unreasonable. However, like a broken fridge, if it wasn't anything to do with like the door handle, so like if this was treated poorly by a tenant and it snapped off, that would be unreasonable from the tenant's usage. But if it just wasn't working, we can't just try to steal money from the tenant to fix the fridge, because if the tenant was living in the unit and they submitted a maintenance request saying, hey, the fridge is broken, it's not keeping my food cold, the landlord would traditionally, under a normal lease and in the state of Tennessee, would have to cover the repairs of the fridge. That's the whole value of being a tenant in the first place. You want a predictable monthly bill so that way unpredictable things that happen can be covered. That's the value of what a rental can be compared to you buying a house yourself and living in that house on your own. We're probably going to get stuff like this touched up, but once again, can I take that out of the deposit? That's a 50-50. I'll have to think on that. It's really about how I make that decision is if I'm standing in front of a judge and I have the tenant suing me and suing our landlord for how much money I withheld from their security deposit, do I feel right by what I did? And was it reasonable for me to withhold that money? And as someone that's been a tenant before, I've had multiple apartment complexes, go way over what they've tried to withhold on my deposit. And it's a really emotional thing when you try to leave a place nice and people still try to take your money because they have it already and they think that you won't do anything about it. So I say all that to say I really try to be fair because I understand both sides. And as the property manager, I represent the landlord first, but I have to make sure we're following the law. Things like stickers on walls, that's another thing that I researched and learned that it is reasonable for that to be there. So for us to charge the tenant to take these off, they would more likely win in court than us to get their money back from us, quote unquote, taking it for this. So it's weird, but more personal items. So as the personal items add up, I kind of start getting closer to, okay, it's becoming unreasonable. They did not treat this place at exit the way they should have. So so this is our second chair. We have like a 50-inch TV right here. For an eviction situation that we were in, this is like really good. For a regular move out, probably average, if not a little bit below par of how a tenant treats it. And just because we're coming from a potential eviction to this doesn't mean I can treat it any different. I have to treat every tenant the same. So we just have to pay attention before we move in another tenant that we gotta get all this personal items cleaned up. So I keep all the doors open. I turn all the lights on. I make sure we change all the light bulbs. They seem to all be on. And that is just a good quick tip on how to your first couple steps of doing a move out process. Open up all cabinets, including uh, underneath the sink in the bathroom, and then just getting all of those photos. Because without those, you'll miss a lot of things. Because our cleaners, when you hire a cleaner yourself, you'll realize a lot of them, they will do literally what you ask and not a penny more. And other than that, just a good deep clean. Our move out process we fill out on a form. I can show you right here. So we have the property and we answer all these questions as we do it. And you can click into these photos that we take per room. And this is how we keep everything standard and every property getting the same amount of attention. So our team will take that back, turn it into the vendor, and then they'll get out here the next couple days and get the list done. Another quick tip is to keep as few of vendors working on a property as possible. If you can give one person all the work, they will usually give you a discount because you're paying on a bigger project. So even as something small as this property, you could end up accidentally having a painter here, a cleaner, and maybe even a handyman. So that's 3 vendors that if you could wrap up in one, you'll save yourself quite a bit of money. Plus the communication and the speed of it all getting done. And there's no complexity of multiple vendors trying to get in the lock boxes, and the first one changed the code on accident, or the second one took the key and now your cleaner's trying to get in, but your handyman's at Home Depot. These are all things that happen in real estate, and you have to be aware of it, and you have to dilute these situations from happening as much as you can as a property manager, because our game is scaling our time and our attention to detail and notes as fast as we can because of how many properties we have to manage to, oddly enough, be profitable. So our staff, we're at 5 full-time team members, and we manage just under 250, and that in the area of Knoxville is probably above par for how many team members you get per property, per properties in Greenwich. So from here, the infomercial is done. We're going to go. So we drove like 2 hours to do a 20-minute little walkthrough, which is good. We're going to put the lockbox on it, schedule the vendors, get photography scheduled the day after that, and then get this thing back up on market before late spring is over. So that way we can get a tenant and get going. So thanks for joining in another day of property management. It's Memorial Day. Tomorrow we're going to be all the way up in Jacksboro, even though today we're in Bristol. So we're just doing one by one. Every property that needs a little bit of attention, we'll always get it. So another big thing is making sure you have at least 2 keys, one for your vendor and one for yourself. So that way when a team member shows up of ours or a vendor shows up and they mess up a lockbox or whatever, we can get out and fix the problem without having to get another thin rekey. That's just the most annoying thing in the world. Slow.